Hi everyone. I'm just quickly going to give a bit of a recap and observation to my time yesterday in Toronto covering the pro-Palestine, the Free Palestine march that happened. For any of you who watched my live stream here on YouTube, I did do one on Facebook as well. But for those on YouTube, I want to give you my observations. It was very loud, of course, so for me to talk during that was very difficult, and the film wasn't that great. So hopefully this film is okay. So I went down to Dundas Square to observe the pro-Palestinian march. There were thousands of people. It was very loud, and they marched through downtown Toronto. And sorry, I just got a hair behind me. And so I just want to say, mostly I want to just give you my observations, which I saw at the time, but afterwards I realized, oh, that was definitely different. Now, for any of you who don't know, I have covered, been present at a number of the pro-Palestine events, the marches, the rallies, and what I observed there every single time was, for the most part, I and others that were filming, other independent journalists that were filming, were blocked from filming. Flags were put in our faces. We were kind of chased away. We were intimidated. People, there were Palestinian supporters that I guess their job was to be intimidating, so they would be wearing black and would keep anybody away. So that has been my experience over the time of being at these marches and rallies. Sorry, the sun is kind of in my eyes and trying to find a spot that isn't quite so. Okay, maybe that. Anyway, so yesterday I got to Dundas Square, and I could walk throughout the entire group and the whole rally on the square, on the street. I was allowed to film. I was never intimidated. There was none of what I had experienced at any other pro-Palestine march or rally. And I found that kind of odd. And even the police, their demeanor anyway, seemed very relaxed. They were there and they blocked off the roads and they kind of directed the traffic, or the traffic of the march, so that there would have been an agreed upon route. So they did their thing, but there was really very little to no sort of I don't want to say the word aggression, but there was no disturbance of the police. They didn't seem terribly concerned about anybody being there or the activity of the marchers, nothing, which is again quite unusual. Yeah, I found it very odd, and I wondered what that's all about. So I would assume, it's an assumption on my part because I don't know, but I would assume that from whoever organized the march in Toronto, that the command came down from high up and said there'll be no intimidation, there'll be no blocking of people filming. You just march and you do your thing. There was definitely free Palestine yelling. There was still river to the sea. There was calls of, we will never stop until we're free. So there was still all that going on, but there was just no blocking of me or anybody else of filming or being part of it. I walked right up the street. I walked through the middle of the march. I talked to people on the march. Very, very different. So why was that? That's a question. I don't have an answer to that, but I wanted to come on here for anybody who watched my live stream or any other film of that march, is to observe that there was definitely a difference. Now, a couple of times I tried, again, it was very loud, so you couldn't really have a conversation particularly, but I tried asking a few of the marchers if what did they think that Hamas would release the hostages on the midnight of October 6th, as per the peace plan brought forward by President Trump, and they would not answer. Their answering to me was to give me a history lesson on on Palestine and Israel, and to say that they would not stop. That Israel has made comment that they won't stop, and so they will not stop. So I tried a few times and asking people, did they think that Hamas would release the hostages? That was my question. And they wouldn't answer. I did see somebody in the subway. I'm in Toronto, but if I didn't say that at the beginning, this was the march that happened in Toronto yesterday. I am in Toronto, and so I covered it. So I'm in Toronto still. And I was on the subway in Toronto, and I saw a guy wearing a keffiyeh, so I took the liberty of going up to him and asking that question, and the question of, do you think that Hamas will release the hostages? And again, he started giving me a whole history lesson, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not here for a history lesson. I'm just curious what you think. Do you think Hamas will release the hostages? Yes, no, maybe, don't know, whatever. And he just refused, and he got pretty mad at me and continued to say, tell me the history of Palestine and Israel, and then sort of stormed off. And so that was kind of that. I did try, and it was difficult, but again, I really wanted to let people know, that those that did watch my live stream, and those, even if you didn't, to know that that was my observation. It was quite odd. There was no smoke bombs. I wasn't there because I took a break, and then I went back down to Dundas Square, but I understand that they did stop near the on Long Young Street, along going south, and they stopped and prayed on the street. I think that's kind of a control, a show of power of something. But regardless, not to get into the religious aspect of it or not, they did do that, but I didn't see any smoke bombs, and they were all very civil, and they had, I would say, appointed some people that they did wear their keffiyeh around their face, and not all of them, or they'd wear masks, but not even all of them, but they were sort of in charge of keeping the marchers in line, if any of them got a little bit aggressive, sorry, there's a wasp on my hand, a little bit aggressive, they would kind of just, pull them along and gently just move them along. There was, control from their end to keep it very peaceful. So I don't know why, because I've never seen that happen to that, certainly to that extent. And I think I saw, now I could be wrong, but I do think I saw the pro-Palestine march in Ottawa, that they did do smoke bombs, and it was kind of aggressive. So I don't know why Toronto wasn't. I don't know. But it wasn't. It was very peaceful, as far as me or anybody else being there. They just didn't bother with us at all. And then I say that there was a Christian street preacher doing his thing, and a few of them started getting a bit aggressive with him, not in any physical manner, but kind of verbally. And the police did come and bring their bikes and kind of surrounded him and protected him. And really, that was the only little bit of sort of aggression I saw. So it was very interesting from that perspective. I couldn't even guess why. I mean, I could guess, but really, they decided Toronto would be peaceful. Now, from what I understood later, they the marchers did want to go to the Israeli consulate, but the police didn't allow them to do that. And there might, I wasn't there, so I can give you no on the ground reporting on that. But they might have had a bit of a pushback. I don't know, from to the police and the marchers, but I think the police had it in hand, and they didn't even really have to do too much, because I believe it was just agreed on that that's what they would do. And so even with this, again, is my guess, even those marchers that tried to go to the consulate, they kind of knew that they weren't going to be allowed. So I think it was just more of a show. But again, it's just my guess. I was on Bay near Bloor. There's an Indigo bookstore, and Indigo's CEO is an Israeli supporter, and so Indigo has been pointed out, and they have gone into the Indigo bookstore at I believe this was a year or so ago at what do you call it, Eaton Center, and they did go right in, and so there were police on bikes blocking the Indigo doors, and so, but nobody tried. I mean, I was there, right there on the ground. Nobody tried to get anywhere near Indigo. Nope. They were really, it seemed to me, those, and I don't know how they get to thousands of marchers. That's the curious part. How did they get all that to thousands of marchers, but they all just stayed in line? It was, and very few people were wearing like masks or like trying to stay hidden. They didn't mind being filmed. It was different, and so I just want to report on that, and just for the sake of reporting and my observation. So that's it. I hope everyone has a great day today, and I will be watching what goes on, to the deadline for Hamas to start, to return and release the hostages, the peace plan that Trump and Israel has put together. I'll be interested to watch that, along with probably everybody else in the world, and we'll see what happens. I certainly am always for peace. I hope that this world will find a way to live peacefully. So far, humanity hasn't been able to do that, sadly, and here we are. Anyway, everybody have a great day. I will be in Ottawa on Tuesday the 7th. I may observe some of the pro-Palestine marching, or I have no idea. But the reason I am going is to support and witness the Tamar Leach and Chris Barber. They're having their sentencing on their mischief from their mischief trial. I will be in Ottawa to observe that, to witness that, and I will come on here, briefly, perhaps, who knows, and just show you guys what's going on there. Okay, that's it. Peace always. Hopefully we can find peace sometime. All right, everybody have a great day, and I'll see you probably on Tuesday. Okay, bye.